Unfinished Business Television Deep Dive. You know what time it is. This episode, we are going to talk about one of my favorite franchises, the Scream franchise, but specifically part 2 of the movie Scream. But before we go there, hi, I am your host, Jeff Galashaw, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Andre Joseph.
Subscribe.
Yes, please do that, amongst other things, and also Wakanda Forever. But even though that has nothing to do with the movie we're talking about, we are going to talk about Scream 2, the sequel to Scream, again, directed by Wes Craven, written by Kevin Williamson, and starring Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, David Arquette, and Jamie Kennedy. This sequel takes place where Sidney Prescott has now moved on with her life and gone to college, and Randy has gone with her when, as soon as she gets to this college, or maybe not as soon, but eventually, murders start happening with characters who have similar names to the people who died in the first Scream, Maureen, and as always, we have the opening scene where somebody, a famous celebrity, dies playing a role, and I'm sure this is Will Smith's favorite movie because Jada Pinkett dies in the first scene with Omar Epps. He's got that on repeat. I can't. This movie, look, I'm just gonna admit, it's not better than Scream, but I think it's the last direct sequel that really is up to some level to the original. I saw this twice in movie theaters. I'm not gonna lie. At the Virgin Megastore Theater, of all places. And one of the heavy things that made me even want to see this more was Sarah Michelle Gellar playing a supporting role in this movie. Made me really want to see this in theaters. Because at the time, Buffy Vampire Slayer, then earlier that year, she had been in I Know What You Did Last Summer. And she actually accepted the role in this movie without having read the script even. So, that's how faithful she was, or she knew it was going to be a hit, to this movie. And this movie oddly has weird, actors you wouldn't expect to be in. It's Joshua Jackson's in this movie in one scene. Oh, and he doesn't even have a real name of his character. You have John Wesley Shipp, who played the father on Dawson's Creek, playing the film professor. You have David Warner as a red herring theater director. With this was a Scooby-Doo movie. You have I'm trying to think who else is in
Laurie
this.
Metcalf.
Laurie Metcalf is Debbie Salt, a local reporter. You have young Timothy Oliphant as a supporting character. Elise Neal, one of her biggest roles ever as Sydney's best friend. And oddly, as the love interest, it's strange because when you see him in interviews, he has so much personality, but in movie roles, he's surprisingly bland. Jerry O'Connell as her new boyfriend, Derek. Look, this movie has some great tension-filled sequences. I'm thinking of the cop car sequence. That is the piece de resistance of this film. Of course, we'll talk about the ending later. But you have the soundproof room stabbing of human pincushion Dewey Riley, played by David Arquette. You have the death of a fan favorite character, which again, in a previous episode of the show, I was telling you about how sometimes sequels are only made all the more memorable when they get rid of a character who everybody loves. And this is unfortunately the case here. You have Dwayne Martin in this movie as the replacement cameraman, another Will Smith connection. I love this movie. I'm not going to say it's perfect. It's stupid in some ways, but it's very entertaining. Andre, tell me about your experiences with Scream 2.
So I remember seeing it because I had seen the first film when it first hit video and enjoyed it. So I was really looking forward to seeing Scream 2. The day it opened, me and my dad saw it at the Atrium here in Staten Island. And I vividly remember that because when the movie was over, we couldn't start the car. So we were stuck in the snow for like an hour or two trying to get a new battery to get out of the theater. That's like one of my unfortunate memories of that. But I remember liking the movie at the time. I actually, weirdly enough, thought it was better than the first. Of course, on later viewing, I have a different opinion of that. Um, I just remember there was a little bit more scares. You didn't know what to expect. I remember all the controversy with how they were trying to keep it a secret with the script. The actors couldn't get the last couple of pages because they didn't want to spoil who the killer was. And at one point, because it was the early days of the internet, it got leaked out. So they had to like scramble and change a whole bunch of things in the third act and then try to really get it, top secret from there. So doing that, casting all these people like Sarah Michelle Gellar, among others, was like a big deal at that point because now it's like, the all-star cast of everybody that was doing WB shows and, all the rom-coms of the period were all like in some way or shape or form part of these movies. So the scares are there. It's fun. All the references to how sequels work and don't work. I love the scene with Timothy Olyphant and Jamie Kennedy going back and forth of what's the better sequel and kind of agreeing with some of those points over the years, reviewing some of those movies. There are a lot of dumb parts. Dewey is Dewey. I feel Dwayne Martin was a stereotype with every line that came out of his mouth. I always thought the bit with Omar Epps' death was just weird, him like just hearing the weird noises and
then listening.
Any person that would put their ear on the fucking dirty stall in a men's room. I don't, that's like Kirk Cameron in that movie where he put his face on a New York City pole inside a subway. No, you don't do that unless you're gonna, get sick and die. Anyway, so just to get that peep out of the way, I love the tension in the cop car scene. And I also like that they kind of, watching it now, I could see where they were setting up who the killer was, but I like that it was unexpected who the second killer was. And a throwback to a certain horror movie that we all enjoyed. Not too many bad things I could say about it. The stakes are raised. It definitely feels like a bigger film. Wes Craven still does his thing, God rest his soul. And yeah, I was sad when they killed Randy. He was one of my favorites. So the way that they took him down was quite shocking because I didn't think he was going to be one of those guys that they were going to take out so easily. So yeah, I like it. I like it better than 3 and 4. And actually, I think the last one was really good.
Well, we all know I hated the last one, so I'll be like, I'll give 4 credit, maybe, no, 4. And for me, it's Scream 1, 2, and then 4. This movie, how can I put, look, when Scream came out, I became...
Courtney Cox was really hot in this film.
Okay. Thank you for adding that.
Yeah.
Okay. I was really rooting for the death of Rebecca Gayheart and Portia de Rossi.
Yeah.
Minority characters. That never happened. I am like a Scream aficionado. I love all the sequels, and at the time, I was all up on the gossip. But I would never cross that line of reading the leaked script because I was like, no, I have to be surprised by it. And there's so many stories about that leaked script. Supposedly an extra got it, put it on the internet, but it was an already unfinished version of the screenplay because in that version, Derek and Holly are the killers who are kind of dead. Spoiler alert, Maureen Prescott, Debbie Salt, is like, I guess, funding their killing spree, which is also a thing I never got in this movie. How did she find Mickey? Like, hey, want to make money for film school? Help me go and get revenge killings. So that never made any sense, but I'll go with it. It's better than the long lost son of 3. But even that made at least a little more sense. But anyway, someday we'll talk about 3 in detail. And
yeah, explosions.
Exactly. What I did like about the leaked script, Derek and Holly were the killers. What was it? Not only were they the killers, everybody gets killed, but then Liev Schreiber kills, Cotton Weary not only kills Debbie Salt, but then shoots Gale. And then him and Sydney attack each other, stabbing each other, and then supposedly, if this would have been the end of the series, die side by side. But that was an idea Kevin Williamson had, and then he decided, he already knew he had to do a major rewrite. So thank God he did rewrite it, because also another one of the endings that he wrote that they never used was, even after having the same ending that we see in the movie, there would have been another wide shot of showing the college campus, and then we get to the bell tower, and there's another Ghostface looking over all of this. So that was that one I kind of like that idea, but it also would have let us know Scream 3's on the way, like we didn't know. Like I said, David Warner is obviously a red herring in a Scooby-Doo adventure. That was another tension-filled scene when she thinks she sees the killer during the practice of whatever that medieval play.
Yeah.
I like Jerry O'Connell, but in the film he's kind of bland, but maybe that was the whole plan, since what Billy was the bad boy. So it was like, let me go with somebody a little more, middle of the road, kind of boring.
They gave him the Top Gun scene to make him sympathetic.
Yeah. And then they had that stupid, I know it's a throwback to a joke from the first film, but Tori Spelling playing Sydney in Stab, which I found out Robert Rodriguez really did direct that scene.
Oh,
yeah, not only is he credited in the credits of Stab, but also he actually did direct that scene. Luke Wilson as portraying the ridiculous nature of Scream was hilarious, because then you're like, oh yeah, that was kind of Skeet Ulrich's character performance. I like Laurie Metcalf. I did not expect her to be in this type of movie. She is ridiculously over the top, especially at the end. And my man Mumbles, Liev Schreiber, back again, and they actually give him lines this time rather than in the film where he never talks. Look, I know he can speak full sentences. I will admit, early in his career, it just always sounds like he's mumbling.
Yeah.
And he's like, exactly, Sydney. That's the only word. But he has proven to be a fine actor. I like Ray. So don't take it personally, Liev. I love you. Let's see. Since I wrote down my notes,
I was more sad when Elise Neal dies instead of Jada Pinkett.
Well, that's because we get to know Elise Neal, and they give her the worst little final line. What?
Yeah. She was coming up with money talks. I thought she was kind of attractive in that. She's still attractive now.
Yeah, she is good in this film, and she has a perfect size role. And you do feel sorry for her. And I guess looking at the time, I'm shocked they didn't get a bigger named actress. This seemed like this would have been like if Harvey had his way and he wanted to have sex with her, Brandy would have played the role.
Oh, she would do another movie sequel that wasn't so good.
No, I'm glad she was in that, so I don't have to be like, you know what? Brandy was really good in Scream 2.
So good, I wasted it money in Times Square for it.
Hey, that was a good theater, despite its location. The Virgin Megastore. Yeah, that was my go-to spot for a while. Okay, I saw that there. I saw the Rainmaker there. I saw Mission Impossible, the first one there. So I'm like, it was a good theater. It isn't my fault people wanted to buy CDs instead of going to the movies there. The filming of this film started just 6 months after the release of Scream. That's how rushed into production it was, and I think it was actually came out exactly 1 year later.
It was a year after Scream, but Kevin Williamson already had treatments written out, so they kind of knew where it was going.
Yeah, which gives me many questions about 3. Because supposedly the rumor is that, I guess, again, this is just stories I've heard. None of this has been proven, but supposedly Parker Posey's character in Part 3 is based on the behavior Wes Craven felt Sarah Michelle Gellar had in Part 2. Mm-hmm. So again, not officiated, but that is certainly a rumor.
Might say a lot about her film career.
Well, I always like Sarah Michelle Gellar as an actress. I wish she had done more. Maybe we'll talk about her one day in Do Revenge. I didn't feel like Duane Martin was a stereotype, but it definitely felt like when you have a white writer trying to write for a black person, that type of like dialogue. Like, I was reading this book and whoo! It's just like, really? That's all he could say?
So you guys talk about something, see by the belly, I'm out of here.
Yeah, like, oh man, brothers don't last long in these situations. I was like, am I watching not another teen movie? With the black character? But at least, hey, give him credit. He's the only black character who made it to the end because he ran. But I'm like, maybe him and Omar Epps should have switched roles. It's, like I said, Jada Pinkett. Yeah.
Entanglement is what I call her.
Look, I didn't understand at the time why, like, out of all the stars you could get, Jada Pinkett.
Professor, her career was red hot at that point.
But she was in Demon Knight and lived. So I was like, why would you
had a good agent?
Okay, because I was like, why would you want to be in a movie where you die? And let's face it, it's only memorable now because of what eventually the controversy with you that happened, that anybody remember. Because before that, if you had asked, hey, do you remember who died in the beginning of Scream 2? They probably would have been like, Omar Epps. Because like you said,
Jane died at the beginning of Scream 2.
Yeah, and it's like you said, because of the stupidity of like Omar Epps' death, which even got spoofed in Scary Movie.
Yeah, that made me cringe when I saw that.
Though, to be honest, I just had to think for a few minutes as who died in the beginning of Scream 3? Just like, oh yeah, Cotton Weary. I'm like, spoiler alert. Again, look, I don't have many nice things to say of Scream 3. So that's why I love Scream 2 so much. Because the first one, this one, and 4, those to me are like the holy trilogy. Even if they don't quite connect the best, less said about 3, the better. But yeah, I love this movie. It's its 25th anniversary this year, which is one of the reasons why I chose this film of all the films I could have picked for a deep dive. But yeah, I'm like, let's face it, this is the most memorable of Neve Campbell's career, these Scream movies. And, they're the ones that are, I guess, the most star-making roles of them. And the one she'll be remembered for, unless, you were a really big fan of Party of Five. I wasn't. But, yeah, I mean, when it comes to this movie, and she showed dedication because most of the week while she was making the sequel, she was still doing Party of Five. And then on her off days from that show, she was doing this movie, So that shows dedication. And while Scream will always be the crown jewel, this is a jewel in of itself, just not as shiny. And one of the better Wes Craven movies out there that he made. Not the most original, but one of the better ones. Do you have anything else to say about Scream 2 before we go?
Just the fact that, Neve Campbell is great. I mean, in the first 2 films, I felt like she found it into the third, but she definitely is that strong female that you get behind and just you root for her to succeed. And I think that carries through with a lot of her work and a lot of the films that she's done. So, yeah, I mean, I'd say she's still the best thing about it. She holds it together.
I agree. I mean, maybe if they would have let Jamie Kennedy live.
Yeah, we need more Randy to stick around.
Exactly. And even when they tried to put him in part 3 in a cameo, it just didn't feel organic. Yeah. And one of the reasons why I might like this film is because I feel like the third one also, you can feel more of the Weinstein's fingerprints all over it, even though it really at heart, it's a dark comedy kind of spoofing them and their practices.
Unintended.
Exactly. Sure. Unintended. Well, at least they didn't notice. But this one, I feel like, again, it's fresh, full of ideas. And that is maybe why I liked 4 when it eventually came out, though I didn't see it in theaters. I felt like at least this is giving me something fresh and organic from the franchise, or at least it feels that way. Whereas, the next one, part 3, just I applaud it for its subtlety for what it's talking about, but ultimately the movie's horrible. So that ends this week's deep dive. But as you know, we always have unfinished business to be had. So until next time, folks, enjoy, subscribe, and watch Scream 2 again. It's its 25th anniversary. It deserves it. Buy it a beer.